Have you ever wanted to be the first to know if aliens really exist? Well, with Nebula, you can be! Nebula is the streaming service that's home to It's Probably Not Aliens, as well as our YouTube channels. And the best part? All of our content goes up early on Nebula. So when we break first contact with ET, you'll be the first to find out. That's right, you'll be able to listen to the next episode of this show before anyone else. Plus, we post bonus content that you won't find any other place. And the best part? By signing up for Nebula at nebula.tv/probablynotaliens, you're directly supporting the show and both of us. So don't wait any longer. Join Nebula today and be the first to know if this time it really is aliens. It's time to talk about vitrified stones.
Donkey.
Oh.
All right, so that was your Scottish accent. Here is my Scottish accent. Hi, Tristan. How are you doing today?
Oh, because you're Scott.
Because my name is Scott.
Uh-huh.
But I can't sound too much like myself, so it has to be Scott-ish. So instead of, I will say like, I'll just put a little spice on it. Hey, Tristan, how's it going? That's like Scott-ish. Hey, buddy. What's going on?
Wow. Noped out. Okay.
All right, fine. I'll do a Scottish.
No.
I'll do a proper one if you want me to.
This is like mutual blackmail.
Yep. I watch Outlander, so I feel like I can do this. Oh gosh, I need something to say. Yeah, okay. I'll say donkey. All I know how to say is donkey.
Oh, okay. Well,
no.
You know what? That's fine. That's fine. We're already banned now in Scotland for that.
Yep.
That's fine. We deserve it.
Oh well. Why are we trying to do Scottish accents right now?
Because, well, free Scotland, first of all, but because this is a podcast.
This is a podcast. That is the quickest cold open we've ever done. This is a podcast called It's Probably Not Aliens, where we look at ancient astronaut theories, Ancient Aliens, the show, and we look at some of their claims and debunk them. We're doing a whole series about ancient alien technology right now. And my name is Scott Nicewander. I know how to say donkey.
You didn't nothing.
In a kind of Scottish accent. And that's all I got.
Yeah, didn't know a thing.
I didn't know. What else do they say? I can't remember. They have a lot of fun vernacular on Outlander.
Yeah, ancient aliens. It's rubbish. Yeah. My name is Tristan Johnson.
Actually, this works. So instead of me saying I know nothing, it's I ken nothing. Ken is what they use for no on Outlander.
Perfect. I don't think I've watched Outlander. Wait, I think I watched the pilot on recommendation of you, and I was like, no.
No, yeah, I get it. It's fine.
I'm not horny enough for this show.
That's fine. You can finish your outro, though.
Yeah.
This is Tristan. He's not horny enough.
I don't know, but I know too much about conspiracy theories and ancient aliens. And
you can too much.
I can too much. I can far too much. But yeah, today we're going to Scotland, I think for the first time in the show's history, hence all of the Scotland stuff.
Yeah.
It's too bad we can't get like Rod to make a version of the theme song with bagpipes or something.
That would be funny. We probably could. We're recording this well in advance.
That is true. But
we might not, though.
I feel like Rod has better things to do, like anything.
Rod's too famous for us now on TikTok.
It's true. He's a fancy guy. But
I think I've mentioned this before, but every time I've played, speaking of like Scotland, every time I've made, when I used to play Roller Coaster Tycoon when I was much younger, I would always name my theme park Scotland, but with two T's because my name was Scott. So I would say Scotland.
Perfect.
Not Scotland with one T.
Well, did you know?
We're not going to that. We're not going to 2T Scotland today. We're going to Scotland. 1T Scotland.
Okay. But today we're going to learn something that, did you know that the Scots, millions of people around the world believe.
Ooh, you want me to hit it?
Yeah, hit it.
What's the claim?
that there are signs that the Scots had powerful laser beams, or aliens use powerful laser beams for a very specific purpose. And that is...
Were these laser beams a technology, or are you saying that Scottish people have laser beam eyes?
I mean, if they had heat ray vision, that'd be interesting. But what we're saying is that there is, in Scotland, these remnants of old stone forts. But what's interesting about them is that the stones have been partially vitrified. Now, that's probably a word, because unless you're a chemist, you probably don't know what the term vitrified means.
Vitrify. I know there's some STEM words I know that there's some stems I've heard, like vitrify, like vitriol. That feels like a red hot toxic sort of thing. Vitriol, like you got this hatred maybe. I don't know, but that's all I got.
Okay. So what it is when you basically to vitrify stone, you are partially turning it into a glass-like substance, which there are 60 such examples of this around Scotland, with places like Craig Pradraig and Dunmac Snycan around the Scottish Highlands. And these are extremely old. But the thing is that vitrification...
How old are they?
They're like from the Bronze Age, I want to say. Iron Age. It's further down.
They're from an age.
They're from the Iron Age. So like around the time the Bible was being written. But the thing is that vitrification requires temperatures between 1,100 or 1,300 degrees Celsius, or for Americans, 2 to 2.4 thousand degrees Fahrenheit.
Wow.
That's hotter than the surface of a...
It's almost as hot as it is outside right now.
Whoa. Take that, weather.
A little observational humor about the weather.
That's what you come to this podcast for, the high-quality observational comedy.
That's right.
But it's really hot, to the point where it's hotter than the surface of a volcano, and it's similar to the temperature that you need to melt glass. So really fucking hot is the thing.
So because they talk about this on the show, Ancient Aliens. That's my job. I watch the show. And they talk about it, and they show off these rocks that we're talking about, and they even say that they're like smooth as glass, these rocks. So they must have been really burnt or really molten or whatever to something hot happened to these rocks.
Yeah.
Was it an Archimedes death ray? I don't know. But they sort of transition from that into this. So something happened to these rocks. It's weird.
So here's the thing. How could they do that? How could ancient people have such high temperatures? So this has puzzled scientists and historians for years, and there's various theories. But the reason we're here today is that one of the theories is that ancient aliens equipped with death rays melted the stones to create these fortifications.
Okay. That's what it is.
Because the argument...
They had these death rays.
So it's like the proponents believe that the technology to generate such intense heat would be beyond the capabilities, so that only extraterrestrial beings could provide the means to achieve vitrification. Only Iron Age people could have technology. I was trying to all I wrote here was there's an iron brew joke here.
An iron brew. What's iron brew?
Iron brew is like a pop that
I know
is
what it is.
popular in Scotland.
Yes, I had one of my best friends in high school was from Scotland, and he talked a lot about iron brew. You have unlocked this memory for me. I was like, what is iron brew? And then I saw it written on your outline. I was like, I know what iron brew is. Kyle wouldn't shut up about iron brew.
Yeah, it tastes vaguely like bananas.
Interesting. I think I had it once. His family is literally from Scotland, so I think they would go back. Like his mom had like a full Scottish accent, so I think they would go there and back every couple of years and bring stuff back. And I think he gave me an iron brew. I think I liked it. Gosh, it was so long ago.
Yeah, I can usually find it at like British stores because we have those in Canada, just like stores that sell British stuff. But yeah, so like the theorists would say that the uniformity and precision of the vitrification is evidence that could not have been done with the primitive methods available at the time. This is a very classic, very classic ancient aliens fodder. So could ancient
big rocks look like they've been hit with a laser beam?
How melt big rock? How melt big rock?
How do you do it?
How do you move it?
How do you do it?
How do you melt it?
How do you melt it?
So could Scots have really achieved vitrification without extraterrestrial help? If not, it's an impressive feat. How did they do it? And so that's the plan that we're going to get into today.
Excellent.
I'm
interested. I want to know, because I need some more information, because they really gloss, sort of a pun, I guess, gloss over these rocks. They just sort of show them and they're like, some big heat source or something must have hit these rocks because of how they look. So do we have any more information about their claim here?
Yeah, let's chew into it. So ancient astronaut theorists propose that these vitrified forts were created by advanced technology, specifically death rays or heat rays that could generate these really high temperatures. Again, the theorists argue that you need to get to about 1100 degrees Celsius, which could not have been achieved by Iron Age societies using conventional methods. So that suggests that only a civilization that had some advanced technology, potentially from aliens, would be able to melt and fuse rocks as they do.
Kind of weird to speculate that they were aiming death rays at rocks. Rocks they're dead, man. They're already dead.
Well, they are now.
Wait, what?
Aliens killed all the rocks.
Rocks were alive? Rocks used to be alive, and the aliens killed them all.
Exactly.
Except for the crystals. The crystals are still alive.
Yeah, they're the last remnants of the rock people. So these stones in these forts do have a distinct glassy appearance, which indicates they were subjected to intense heat. It gives the walls an almost otherworldly look that captivates researchers and fuels speculation. So I've tried to give you some pictures of these things. A lot of them are destroyed, so you only get like bits and pieces of it, but I'm hoping that you can get a little bit of the idea of what's going on here through these images.
Yeah, I mean, they do just look like rocks, but they have this sort of glassy, glossy sort of appearance to portions of them. But otherwise, they just sort of look like rocks to me. I don't know. I'm not a very good rock scientist.
You're not a rockologist at all.
I'm not a rockologist.
Yeah. So again, the idea is that these are
the study of Dwayne Johnson, a rockologist.
Oh my God. So basically, like Dwayne the Rock Johnson, the claim is that the precision and consistency, that the consistency and precision of the vitrification process suggests that there were sophisticated tools or devices used, which they attribute to alien visitors. How did you get him to have a singing voice that he could do Moana? Here you go.
This is it. Clean it up in post.
Yeah. And so, and as I wrote here, while it's fun to just say shit, maybe we should actually interrogate that.
Very good.
So is this type of vitrification beyond the capabilities of poor Iron Age Scots? And we'll find out.
I would love to know.
We will find out. But first, we have to go meet with our Iron Age Scots, which are products and services that support this podcast.
Let's do it. Well, that was great. Thanks. I thank you to product or service for
Thank you to Iron Brew for sponsoring this.
Thank you to Iron Brew for sponsoring this and for filling our pockets with shiny rocks. That's basically currency.
Yeah, it's true.
Shiny rocks.
Really, all money is just gold with extra steps.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's just go through every claim bit one by one and see where things go. So the first claim was that the ability to generate high temperatures was beyond the technological capabilities of Iron Age civilization. Well, here's the thing.
Immediately not true, because if you've seen Outlander, you know how hot that show gets.
Yeah. The thing is, immediately no, because there's a lot of evidence that Iron Age societies were adept at using fire for various purposes, including metalworking. Metalworking, especially, blacksmithing iron, does involve making temperatures that go up to and exceed 1100 degrees Celsius. The whole thing that defines the age is the ability to smelt iron, which, again, needs temperatures at around the same level.
Which is, what would make the rocks that way.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right, off to a bad start. Fair enough.
This has been verified through experimental archaeology, which if ancient aliens decide to research this claim more than not at all, they could have looked up that Wallace Thornycroft and Ver Gordon Child in the 1930s did a experiment where they successfully were able to make vitrified stone walls using nothing but large timber fires.
That is almost 100 years ago.
Yeah.
that people verified that regular humans could do this.
Yeah, with the technology available at the time.
Period.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Recent experiments have confirmed that if you make a sustained timber fire, especially with timber-laced walls, you can reach temperatures required for vitrification. No problem.
Easy peasy. Anyone could do it. You at home could do it. Don't
vitrify any of your walls. The next is the idea that the precision and consistency of vitrification process suggests that they use sophisticated tools or devices. The thing, though, is that doesn't seem to be true. So basically, lots of studies of these vitrified forts show that the vitrification is not uniform nor precise. And that the quality of the vitrification varies immensely between different forts.
So they're just making stuff up on Ancient Aliens.
Yeah, this is pretty much on the making shit up part of the spectrum. They're irregular. They have a patchy nature, which indicates much more likely that this was the result of fire than a sophisticated tool.
What if the aliens were just bad at it? What if they had the sophisticated tools, but they were just bad at using them?
They were,
you and I live in a time period where we could, rent tools or, big, construction machines. So we have those technologies, but what if we're just bad at using them?
That's true. That's true. My attempt to garden this year didn't work. And if I couldn't even garden, I can't even imagine how I would vitrify stone. But the choice of materials, the thing is that the reason they chose to do it is because of the local geology. The types of stones used influence the degree of vitrification. So you see, it's patchy and inconsistent because different types of stones vitrify in different ways or at different levels. And so some stones are more susceptible to melting than others. So that seems to work. And also that it follows that this place had construction techniques like timber-laced walls that allowed for the concentration of heat, which shows that they had a sophisticated idea of fire management and that they had materials to do all of this stuff without the advanced tools. So
they were used to doing this. It wasn't a new thing for them. And they had all these, things in place that would suggest that, this was old hat for them.
Exactly. And the other claim that the uniform vitrification observed in these forts couldn't have been achieved through primitive means like wood or fire or simple kilns. While, as was showed in the 1930s, that we've done experiments where controlled fire experiments show that vitrification can be achieved using wood fires, particularly when the fire is sustained over a long period and insulated to make high temperatures, i.e., the process that anybody uses to make fire hot enough to melt things.
Make hot. Mm-hmm. Yeah. How to make hot.
Yeah. And this is not just backed up by experimental evidence, but also geochemical and mineralogical analyses of the vitrified stone that shows that, large sustained fires were probably responsible for this vitrification. The temperature required was definitely achievable by Iron Age methods. Research on the Broborg Hill in Sweden has rocks like dolerite and amphibolite that can melt at temperatures as low as 1,000 to 1,200 degrees Celsius. Which can again be achieved with intense prolonged fire. So it's there's certain types of stones can get even lower. So you don't even have to get to iron melting levels.
Okay. So I feel we've definitely hit on this idea of this technology, the idea of vitrifying stone was not impossible. It wasn't even new to them.
And it's not even the only place that it happened.
And it's not even the only place that it happened. Something that the show that Ancient Aliens sort of skips over, they just talk about these stones. They don't really give a lot of history about what they are or why they were made. And that feels like pretty fertile ground for this show. Do you have any Do you have any additional information that Ancient Aliens just like skipped over about these? Because they are really interesting. I want to learn more about them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does seem like a random thing for aliens to do. Like, why use these on random forts in Scotland? Why couldn't they go build more pyramids or create crop circles or something like that?
Yeah.
But why this happened? So this is the part where we don't have a whole lot of information because who made these forts? What purpose did they serve? And so I can delve a little bit into what we got here. Yeah. So this place, so Iron Age Scotland was a place full of strong communities, kinship structures. The closest comparison people have made is was fairly similar to indigenous North American societies. Communities would live in these large family groups, and they had these fortified structures called cranogs, which were built on water, or brooks, which are dry stone towers. They had a sophisticated social hierarchy, wealth and status through things like gold, amber, or different types of ornaments.
That's very fun. You're unlocking stuff because again, I've watched Outlander and the sort of big castle or whatever that the main character Jamie is in charge of or was in charge of was called Lollybrock, and now you saying Brock were these dry stone towers. Yes, you're unlocking a lot for me.
Mm-hmm. Good. I'm glad you're learning. That's learning. That's called learning.
I'm learning things.
Yeah, and we see that during the period of the Iron Age, we saw that there's a lot of advancements happening when it came to metalworking. Iron tools and weapons became pretty common. Pottery was in these long-lived vessels that didn't have a whole lot of decoration. But we saw that there were lots of swords and shields that suggest that this was a society that went to war fairly often.
Sure.
We also see things like rotary querns, which were used for grinding grain, or torques, which are collars and pins for fastening clothes. So these forts that we see were built, were basically, as all forts are, a form of defensive architecture used to protect against enemies who might attack.
I guess so. That's not what I built pillow forts for when I was younger, though. I wasn't preparing for an attack. I just wanted a cool cave to watch Cartoon Network on.
I mean, they hadn't invented Cartoon Network yet. So this was the only this is the only sort of thing they could do with a fort.
It's preparing for war or watching Cartoon Fridays.
Exactly. Yeah.
Those are what forts are for. All right.
Yeah. But the thing is that they also weren't super isolated. The Iron Age population in Scotland traded and adopted new technologies, especially those that had been introduced by the Romans, because this is when the Romans were in Britain. And despite the idea that they just went to war with each other, there's actually, a lot of evidence that the Scots and the Romans traded with each other and got a lot of stuff out of each other. And you can see board games, coins, and different feasting ware that show that the Romans did have a sort of impact, and there was a bit of a blending of local cultures.
God, I wish I had a best friend named Roman. We'd be Scott, the Scott and the Roman, just best friends, trading our Yu-Gi-Oh cards back and forth. That'd be great.
Well, there is a Roman Mars who hosts a design podcast. You could always reach out.
Hey, are you looking for a new best friend, Roman Mars?
I have a joke I want to make, and I would like for you to help me make it.
Okay. Roman, please. I promise this joke will be funny to us, but otherwise it will be 99% invisible.
Ooh.
Boom. Boom.
I'm glad you know this.
That's good.
Yeah, there you go.
That's good for people who get it.
It's a good podcast. But there's a lot of evidence that the ancient Scots of Iron Age Scotland had stuff that suggested they had religious rituals, possibly used for healing or various charms, that they had oral traditions that they passed down knowledge and stories through, that they had, iron plows, which was, in the Iron Age created an increase in agricultural output, which led to population booms. The communities became more and more reliant on farming and hunting. There's even evidence that they had things like chariots and pony caps, which indicate that they had horses, which are an import from Asia, which is probably a thing they got from the Romans.
Thank you, Roman Mars.
Yeah. And also that again, more evidence that they were invaded by the Romans. The Romans invented
Roman.
They built a wall called the Antonine Wall.
Okay.
which I believe, don't quote me on this, but I believe that the wall in Game of Thrones is slightly inspired by.
Wouldn't know. Never watched Game of Thrones.
Oh, really? Because it's back and it's pretty good.
Oh, it's back again.
Well,
that's right.
They're doing House of the Dragon, but it's basically Game of Thrones.
Yeah, it's like the same thing. I think. I don't know. Haven't seen either.
They're good. So, yeah, despite that, the local tribes did have a distinct culture that resisted Roman control. So the thing is, like, why vitrify the stones? Because there's something really interesting about that, which is that vitrification actually often weakens the rocks that use it. It's not like a thing to like harden the stone or make it stronger. It actually makes it weaker.
I would have thought it was because, yeah, I feel like it was, maybe I'm wrong here, but I felt like it was like melting them so hot that they sort of like fused together and have this like hardened shell or something like that.
But it's also kind of turning it into glass, and glass is, much more brittle.
Glass is fragile. Glass is brittle and fragile.
Mm-hmm. But like the theory that what happened is that they would do this for various reasons. The leading theories are that it was a ceremonial thing or like a ritualistic thing, possibly like a way to like dedicate a fort, like kind of like to almost like breaking a glass, breaking a bottle of wine over
some
a ship.
Champagne or over a ship, christening it a little bit.
Or they would use it to like commemorate some sort of big event. But another theory posits that it was actually like a way to mark the destruction. Because basically like this theory posits that like when a fort was destroyed by an attacking force, they would, or when they were trying to demolish it, that they would vitrify the stone as a way to like make it easier to shatter.
Oh, so like you don't want your enemies. You put all this work into this fort that's good and strong, but if your enemies get a hold of it, then you want to make sure that it doesn't protect them as much, so you make it a little bit more fragile.
Yeah, or if you just want to, like in a very dramatic and cool way, destroy your enemy fort.
Yeah, also that too.
Yeah, and so so like that those are like the kind of leading theories about why they did it. Now, then that led me to just being like, well, now I need to know what vitrification is, because this is kind of a cool thing.
We've been talking about it this whole time. I gotta know. I mean, yeah, I feel like we've talked about what it does to the like physical appearance of the rocks and things, making them look more like glass and glossy and shiny and a little bit fragile. But yeah, tell me more about this.
Yeah, so this is a funny thing, because like in some ways, vitrification is still a little bit of a mystery, but I'll give you a little bit of what can go down. So what it is it's taking a liquid, and what you do is you heat it up, or you heat something up to a liquid state, and then you cool it down very fast. Because what happens is as a liquid cools, its viscosity increases dramatically. And if you can make it go close enough, you can have the effective freezing of the molecular motion in a disordered state. So what that means is like typically when something solidifies into a solid, it crystallizes. When water turns to ice, it turns into ice crystals. What they do, So what they do in this point is that if you heat something up and then cool it down very fast, in a very specific way, you can have it so that it turns to a solid, but it doesn't crystallize. And it kind of stays in this, it's not exactly solid because the molecules don't get all organized into crystals, but the crystal stops, or the thing stops moving. So it's like cold enough to be a solid, but it didn't crystallize to actually turn into a solid. So it turns into almost like a frozen liquid. And that is what like glass is. Like that's what we do to sand to make glass. That's why glass actually does very, very, very slowly melt.
This might be in a corrections episode, but because all right, there have been like viral posts over the years that say that like, glass is constantly like flowing. So when you look at ancient buildings, the glass is thinner in the middle and thicker on the edges because it's, flowing, downward or what have you. And I feel like that's been debunked. That specific thing has been debunked. I don't know if the principle of the glass being, like the glass could still be, moving or whatever very, very slowly, like sort of what you were saying. But I think that specific thing was more debunked of the like, they didn't have the technology at the time to make it a perfectly smooth pane of glass.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Easier. Yeah. But That could be a corrections episode thing. I don't know,
Yeah.
but I just want to throw that out there.
No, that makes sense. So basically, so basically what vitrification is that you lower the temperature to below a glass transition temperature, in which case the liquid becomes it's like making the liquid so viscous that it actually behaves like it's solid.
Gotcha.
And
all right, just to throw this out there, I looked it up really quickly. Contrary to the urban legend that glass is a slow-moving liquid, it's actually a highly resilient elastic solid, which means that it is completely stable.
There you go.
So you
outscienced me.
Yeah, anything that is like the ripples and the warps and like the things that are like it's thicker at the edges or whatever, those are just things that happened when the glass was initially created.
Mm-hmm.
Look at me. I brought something to the table.
That's nice. That's good stuff.
Of this episode.
And the thing is, like, to do it, you need to heat something to a liquid temperature, but then you have to cool it fast enough that nucleation can't occur, which means that like a lot of vitrification that we've been doing in recent days has been done by using like cryogenics and like, liquid nitrogen and like stuff like that. Because vitrified materials have very interesting like heat and thermoconductive properties.
Okay.
And there's some interesting material science that can come out of vitrification.
Oh, I love material science.
Yeah. And two that stick out that I think are very fun. So one is the potential, like we're kind of getting into the point where like batteries, like lithium batteries as we have them. So they have a problem where when you charge them over and over and over again, what happens is these like spikes sort of go through the anode thing and then they touch each other, and this sort of like makes the batteries less effective. And so lithium batteries only last for so long, and they can only store so much energy. So there's a big effort to try and improve battery technology so that it doesn't rely on things that are extremely volatile, like the lithium-ion batteries, but also so that they can have a faster charge time, so that they can hold a charge longer, so they can hold more of a charge in less time and weight, or less space and weight.
Okay.
So that you could have things like, electric cars not be so expensive, or even considering if you can get to a certain power ratio, you could get things like airplanes that run on batteries or things like that. So one of the candidates for replacing that is something called visoelastic inorganic glass, or VIG glass. You might hear them more often as solid state batteries. And this is already getting started in like small ways. We haven't really been able to make solid state batteries that can like be entirely a solid state battery on its own. But like, for example, in China, there's a new fleet of electric cars that have just started production now that have like partially solid state batteries. They have like solid state, like kind of particles in the battery. But Viglass electrolytes are formed by vitrifying molten salt materials like, and I just wrote like a chemical thing, but molten salt materials. So like that kind of stuff. Again,
which we talked about in the previous
We talked about in the last episode because it's a material that's known for being able to hold a lot of energy and release it slowly.
Cool.
The vitrification allows for the prevention of crystallization. So there's a lot of ionic conductivity at room temperature, which allows for a lot more flexibility and less pressure, because like a typical battery today requires a lot of things to be under pressure. That's why when they get punctured, they explode.
Explode, yeah.
So this...
Trust me, I recently had the experience, the terrible, would not recommend experience of trying desperately to ship something with a lithium battery in it to Canada, to another one of my friends in Canada. And it was a nightmare. The amount of paperwork and just straight up USPS would not do it. I did so much paperwork. I got like the stickers that you need to like show that this has a lithium battery in it for safety reasons and things like that. And they just, at the end of the day, they were just like, we just can't. And I was like, are you kidding? Someone has to let me ship a lithium battery product to Canada. Somebody has to. We did so much. We like went to FedEx, and they were confused about it. Finally, we just went to UPS, and I called them, and I was expecting this big thing of just like, I was trying to explain it to them, and they were just like, yeah, that shouldn't be a problem. And I was like, thank you. Oh, thank God. But yeah, the amount of confusion and safety steps and just practices in place just around lithium batteries, because they can be very dangerous if punctured or overheated or things like that. It's not fun.
Mm-hmm. So these vitrified electrolytes would allow batteries that don't have as much pressure when they're assembled, which makes them cheaper to assemble as well. And they would be a lot more flexible and a lot more durable. And it's also theoretically that they could hold a lot more energy. They could go through more charge cycles before they wear out. And like they could just be overall a much better battery that could power a new fleet of EVs and like, all sorts of like.
Your phone could last more than 3 years.
Well, I feel like 3 years is exceptional, but you mean like in total? Like I thought you meant like on one charge.
Oh, no. Oh God, that would be amazing. No, your phone battery could be alive for more than 3 years.
Yeah.
That would be great.
And the thing is that one of the biggest bottlenecks that we have right now to like the electrification of the world and our infrastructure and like the sort of moving away from fossil fuels has to do with the fact that power density is the major problem. And we have a big issue with being able to make batteries that can compete with oil and coal for like how much energy they can store in this much space. And so this is one step possibly towards that. The other use of vitrification, there's a lot, but the other one that I remember very funny is freezing people. This is actually the first time I ever heard about vitrification. So like, how like people, there are some,
how Walt Disney's head is frozen.
Yeah. Well, how there's like people who are actually convinced that we can just like bring you back to life after being frozen.
Yeah.
Well, this is a part, there's a major problem that comes up when you're trying to freeze things or freeze animal tissue, actually plant tissue too. But and I found out there's actually when I was researching this episode, I came across there's a whole like form of cooking based around this in northern China. But when you freeze things, as I mentioned, when things go from a liquid to a solid, they form crystals. Yeah.
Crystal's bad.
Crystal's
bad for body.
Crystal's bad for body. Like if you think of it, like one of the things you can do apparently to like make a really, really good tasting sweet potato is to freeze it over and over and over again. Because the crystals will break down all the cell walls and will get all of the juicy stuff out and make it really sweet. It's a thing you could do with fruit. It's a popular way of cooking things in northern China. Yeah,
you can do it with tofu too. I've done it with tofu before. It like dramatically changes the texture of tofu to feel more like meat as well. Yeah. Freezing it and then thawing it and freezing it and thawing it, things like
Cryo blanching, I think, is one of the names for it. But the thing is, doing that to cells is not good because when crystals form in water, that rips apart cell walls, it destroys things. So like if you were, say, like to just, submit your body to be frozen at like one of the places that are trying to revive you soon, if they just were to just drop you in a tank of liquid nitrogen, all of the water in your body would freeze and it would destroy all the cells and you would basically just come out as like the most freezer burned like mush.
Yeah. That's no good.
No. So they had to find a way to freeze somebody down to a point where they can suspend all bodily function, but also not cause crystal formation. And that is by using vitrification. So what they do... Here's what happens when you get submitted to have to be frozen.
So this is a thing that's happening this is the technology they're using.
Yeah.
People are using right now, currently?
Yes.
Wow, okay.
So when you are to be frozen, they replace a good chunk of your blood and the water in your body with cryoprotectant agents, specifically things like ethylene glycol or propylene glycol. And these CPAs, as they're called, prevent the ice from crystallizing in the body because they're basically like different. This is basically antifreeze. That's what antifreeze is in a lot of ways.
Oh, okay.
They prevent ice crystals from forming.
Fair enough. Antifreeze.
Yeah. So CPAs prevent ice crystal forming and allow them to lower the temperature of they say patient, I say victim, or mark. To about negative 125 degrees Celsius, which transitions the water in the body to a like part where there's the viscosity of the water in their body is so slow that it's basically a solid, but it doesn't form ice crystals. So they turn into a glassy, vitrified state. And theoretically, that would preserve the tissues and the cells without causing ice crystal damage, which would theoretically allow for them to reanimate it in the future if you can figure out how to bring somebody back to life from the dead.
If you can do this one thing that we've never, ever been able to do before in the history of humanity, then I think it'll work.
Yeah, and that is if the company that you hire to do it doesn't just go out of business and have to throw you all out, which has happened. There are many people, frozen people, who have like had their afterlives. Yeah, they got thrown out because the company that was taking care of them ran out of money, or there was like like the power went out or something like that.
Oh God.
Yeah, you don't want to show up the next day after there was a blackout at your site, right? Like, no.
It's like when you open the fridge after it's been off and just the smell is terrible. Think of that, but with human bodies.
Yeah. So that's some cool stuff about vitrification. But I know that you are in desperate need of me making you sad.
I am always in need of that.
Oh,
there it is. How are you going to make me sad?
So these sites are maintained by a group called the Scottish Archaeological Research Framework.
Okay.
They have active excavations and field research going on all of these sites. And they have a really cool long running sites, and there's all sorts of stuff in Scotland, Neolithic, ancient stuff that is really cool to study.
Sure.
And they are focusing on trying to keep and maintain and repair these sites. Even some like Dig It, which in Scotland compile listings of archaeological digs, and people can actually volunteer across the country every year if you're interested in participating. The problem with these sites is that. And this is happening with archaeological sites around the world. So Scotland's not immune to this. That
it's not just the Scottish people.
Yeah. You remember how you mentioned earlier about the idea of it being really hot where you are?
Yeah, it's super hot.
Yeah, it turns out that that's happening everywhere around the world.
What?
Yeah.
Why?
Mostly because of the stuff that had to do with the coal and because of how energy dense coal and petroleum are, basically.
Oh, okay.
So the thing is that climate change is coming for these sites and many archaeological sites, which means increasing temperatures, increasing rainfall, and rising sea levels, which accelerate the decay of these monuments. So many sites that have these vitrified stones are now at high risk for flooding, for coastal erosion, or even slope instability. Other thing, too, is that the people who are, all of those organizations I mentioned that are trying to conserve and study the site are, as many programs in Britain are, overstretched and underfunded, which makes it difficult to preserve these sites because they basically don't have any money because, I don't know if you know, but Britain basically has dramatically cut back basically all of its government spending over the last few years as a result of the 2008 financial crash. And because of Brexit, things aren't exactly getting better anytime soon. So a lot of these buildings, especially those that were when we started preserving them, they were already ruins, are starting to get weathered. There have been attempts to repair that in previous generations that were not done very well, like using cement on these ancient sites. Which is a big problem and is now causing even more problems down the line.
Oh, no.
And the other thing, too, is that the increasing temperatures and rain are also increasing plant growth, which means that woody vegetation like ivy and sycamore are starting to grow in the ruins more often, which are causing more structural damage. Anybody who's had ivy grow on their houses or something like that will know that the ivy roots can break down stone over time.
Our neighborhood is infested with ivy.
Are you part of those places in the South that has that weird Japanese ivy that takes over everything?
I don't know. Maybe.
Okay.
It's everywhere. It's one of those things where you look at ivy climbing a house or a wall or something, and it kind of looks pretty, right? It's just it's a little overgrown. It's sort of got this vibe about it. But if you are the owner of that home, it doesn't matter how pretty or aesthetic it looks. Ivy is heavy, and it'll tear down everything it is attached to over time. We have it on our fences, we have it on our porch, and we just have to always cut it back because it will grow very fast and very heavy and ruin everything.
Mm-hmm. So these are so the main thing is that these sites are under threat and they are slowly eroding and being destroyed by our reckless need to constantly have a line on a chart go up. And I know this isn't in the notes, but I'm curious about this too. You talked about how the vitrification does tend to make these more fragile. I wonder if that is also an element
of it too, of like, over time, especially as all these other outside forces are acting on it. I wonder if that is also just an issue of like, oh, yes, they're stone, but they are a fragile kind of stone in a way.
Wouldn't surprise me. And as we've seen, lots of archaeological sites have been destroyed through various, poor conservation, all those things. But like the other one is just the fact that everything's getting hotter and wetter, and that's a problem. One of the examples I always think of is that there's a bunch of bodies from World War I that were deaths in a war that sort of a front of the war that we don't talk about a whole lot between Austria and Italy, where a lot of the fighting happened in the Alps. And so there's like a lot of like bodies of World War I people who their bodies were never recovered because they basically died in the mountains and got frozen. And now the sort of melting ice is uncovering these bodies. And now like there's like a whole thing of like emergency rescue of like these 100-year-old corpses so that they can be brought back and studied and identified and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, gosh. Well, it feels like the part that made us sad is different than how it normally is, because sometimes we have like the show Ancient Aliens to blame and get mad at, but this is just sort of like
climate change.
The Earth is dying. Yeah. Oh, boy.
We're struggling.
That's all I can say.
Yeah. Oh, God.
That's all I can say about that.
That was the most well-placed "we're struggling" I think we've ever done.
Yes, thank you, George. Yeah. But you know where you can go to get some relief from the constant struggling of the planet is at Probs Not Aliens on Twitter and maybe Blue Sky if we're still doing that.
Sure.
We're over there. Go check it out. You can get updates to the show, all sorts of fun stuff. But Tristan and I do other things outside of this podcast. You can find Tristan at a cool YouTube channel called Step Back. What's that about?
Well, that's a very good question.
Why aren't you ever stepping forward? Or why aren't you ever running back?
Very funny.
You're always just taking a step back.
Funny thing. There was a time where I was considering making a video or a channel that was going to be about futurism and technology that was going to be called Step Forward. That was going to be like a sister channel.
Oh.
But I never ended up going forward with it.
Fun.
But I like the concept. It's Step Back. It's on YouTube. It's about history and the present and why you need to know the past to understand the present. Scott, if I wanted to see you and Emily you and Emily,
my wife,
a different Emily,
my wife. Oh,
talk about Stan Lee's Goofy reality
not
show.
Wife. This is Lady Emily.
Lady Emily,
who is not my wife. My wife's name is Emily, though. Different Emily. I know too many Emilys.
It's true.
Lady Emily. We talked about the Who Wants to Be a Superhero Stan Lee TV show from back in the day. Very funny. Very wild, very weird. You can go to my YouTube channel, NerdSync, NERDSYNC. It's all one word, and I talk about comics and cartoons and superheroes and all sorts of fun stuff while learning a little bit about the world and maybe even a little bit about ourselves along the way and just having some good goofs and gaffs and laughs and good times. So that's what I do. You can also support this show and get episodes early at nebula.tv/probablynotaliens. And if you want to support the show even further, we would love it if you would go to patreon.com/probsnotaliens. You can get some cool perks over there, some exclusive episodes, things like that. And again, it just supports us directly, and it's really nice. So thank you for doing that. And you can also leave reviews of this show. If you don't have the finances to support us, totally fine. Leave a review on whatever podcast platform you are listening on. If you've already done that and you want something else to do, well, good news, you can tell your friends about the show. That would really help us out as well. And tell them about it in your worst Scottish accent. And don't explain why you're doing that. Just approach your friends and start saying, "Donkey, have you listened to Probs Not Aliens yet?" That's my Scottish accent.
Oh boy. Yeah. Good.
And a great place to send people is the very simple website. That caught Tristan off guard. He didn't know what to do. A very simple website to send people is probsnotaliens.com. Tristan, can you say probsnotaliens.com in a Scottish accent?
Probsnotaliens.com.
That's good. The McDonald's Macbeth. It's from Dropout.
Yeah.
You seen that? The only sandwich with meat taken from a cow who trusted the butcher with his very life.
There you go. Now we're heating up.
Now we're heating up. Anyway, until next time, My name is Scott Nice One.
I'm Tristan Johnson, and the truth is out there, probably you wee shites.
That was good. I think the best part about you know you're doing a good Scottish accent when the person on the other end sort of feels like verbally assaulted by it, just like, oh, okay, yeah, you're doing it.
Neither of us opted for a Mrs. Doubtfire.
That's true. All I can, hello, donkey.
Oh no. We are definitely
All right.
canceled in Scotland over this one.